Good morning. It is a Science Humanity class. This is May 25th, Tuesday. So with the new topic from this week about mostly art. So today to get at those topics under art categories, so we are going to discuss about the meeting between the two famous persons. The long time ago, Newton proposed a couple of different principles and laws and theory, and the Goethe and Goether, in Korean Goethe. So the oppose some part of achievement provided by the Newton. So we discussed those the meeting between Newton and Goethe in scientific way to understand our class in different way, specifically in terms of art, in terms of the science, newly defined by Einstein. We already discussed one. So today we discuss those topics. Again, we have this the definitions in the book written by Einstein and his fellow Infeld, Dr. Infeld, to the sport Infeld. Einstein decided to write it.
셰필드 유나이티드 스와인든 타운 토트넘 하스퍼 FC, 선덜랜드 AFC 또는 셰필드 웬즈데이.
Okay, sorry about this. The city, I believe.
어느 팀의 스콘 말씀이세요?
Okay.
셰필드 유나이티드 스와인든 타운 토트넘 하스퍼 FC, 선덜랜드 AFC 또는 셰필드 웬즈데이.
Okay.
어떤 선수 말씀이세요?
Okay, sorry about any inconvenience from city staff. Okay, sorry. So from this book written by Einstein, he defined. We already know this one definitions done by Einstein, the physicist, the famous physicist, Albert Einstein. The science. He said science is not just a collection of law and theory and other many different facts categorized under deterministic ways somehow. And the following definition of Isaac Newton long time ago. But he also stressed the science is also a creation of a human mind. So human mind, do you believe is one of the science area. So, but with the freely invented idea and concept. So he also continued to extend his definitions. He also elaborate the definition of science by saying that physical theory tried to form a picture of reality. So please remind yourself, we discussed about the reality long time ago, based on the categorical table of concept proposed by Immanuel Kant long time ago in a second part of his categorical concept. So qualitative one. So we have reality of those. So please remind yourself. So try to form a picture of reality and establish its connection with wide world of a sense expression. So Einstein, as a physicist, the famous physicist, the Nobel Prize winner, that told about the science, the through mentioning of a sense impressions to touch, touch human mind, its creation connected to nature, I believe. So please take a second to think of what science is to you. So when we think of a science, when we ask to define the science is, so we always remind ourselves of certain the laws, for example, Newton's law and other Maxwell's and other experiments as well. But Einstein, as a successor of the Isaac Newton, he stressed about this, the human mind, as well as mental structure as well of a human. So that's why the last week we discussed about the complexity of nature proposed by Charles Darwin. We also believe Charles Darwin is a second Newton, even though they are scientists of a different region. That Newton is a physicist and the Charles Darwin is a biologist. So with the evolution of a species. So, but combining these two, by Einstein, we have a certain clue to connect our physical world and the physics to the human mind as well as human sense as well, because we see the world through our senses, 5 senses, and sometimes we extend our senses into the different area through the fancy the scientific apparatus and instrument like such as a microscope and telescope and other instrument to detect or to prove its presence of a DNA, for example, molecular levels, for example. So Einstein, by the way, so to write this book and define other area, other concept as well, but the scientific way he defined the science in different way, such as through the human mind, sense expressions, and the perception, for example. So that's why we would like to extend our discussions with art into our science to understand the whole science mean by certain realities, phenomena, and the finding and clue and the complexity of nature. That's the purpose of this class, this week specifically. So at the left-hand side, that you recognize the him, Isaac Newton. So he look at the apple fall from the tree to find the gravitational theory, but he also I believe he is believed to look at other things surrounding apple to witness the interactions between the particles, for example, the apple and other things. But he would like to analyze those phenomena into the certain specific interaction between two particles, the gravitation through gravitational forces, as opposed to those analytic observations done by Isaac Newton. The Goether other scientists would like to look at those phenomena in different way. So that's why we would like to invite 2 different persons, even though they never met each other, between Isaac Newton and Johann Wolfgang and Goethe. Okay, please look at this canonical order of their appearance from Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, and Albert Einstein. But before, between Newton and Darwin, there was a person, the very famous in area of the man of letter, literary persons. From his the famous work, the title "The Faust," and the sort of Werther. His name is Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. So he is famous from his work, including the Faust and other literary works, but he also wrote the various different scientific books, including Theory of Color, and the Metamorphosis of a Plant. When traveling to Italy from the German, he observed a lot of different things, including rock, including plant. That's why, so during that the journey, he wrote the Faust. It is very well known from 20s. But he also wrote a couple of different notes. So to come up with the very famous book, including Theory of Color and the Metamorphosis of a Plant. So he was a scientist as well. He also would like to introduce him as a scientist, as well as literary persons, writers, and novelists. Why he would like to introduce him as a scientist, even sometimes rather than literary persons, writer, author. Why? So he would like to warn the human about the danger of the way to look at the object in scientific way proposed by Isaac Newton. So Isaac Newton, the Goethe said, is a kind of inheritance of him, so that he could have affections, ambition to write a lot of the great work due to Isaac Newton. That much Goethe concerned about the work Isaac Newton. He actually looks like a hate Isaac Newton. That's why he would like to establish a certain law and theory of the nature. So that's the way I introduce you to get into these types of a perceptive view to look at the nature. For example, light, color, and many other phenomena of nature. So why they actually hate each other, even though they never meet each other? But one example, here is a typical example with the color. Okay, we know the color. Everyone knows color. We have been defining color from light, from different perspective, based on our sense in art area specifically. But they, Isaac Newton and Goethe, have different opinions. Please look at those the book Evolution of Physics I already introduced in this the class. The Newton recognized and proposed a certain theory to consider the light as colorless, the kind of particle, right? Very defined particle. Particle is already there. When you see, for example, the yellow color from the sun, from the light emitted from the sun, he believed there is a particle of yellow, particle with the color of yellow. The color is not created, he believed, but there is a particle, colorless particle, already there. Somehow, he believed he can separate those color particles from the white light emitted from the sun. But Goethe considered those colors as reality instead of a particle and colorless, which can be observed by our eye, our sense. You may ask me, what could be a difference between two definitions done by Isaac Newton and Goethe? There's a big difference. So Goethe actually would like to analyze those specific particles which can be separable from whole particle, whole light. But Goethe never separate, never analyze, never separate into alienate the object from whole reality. Instead, Goethe would like to conceive those one into the phenomena with the reality. The finally, it can be interpreted as a whole from the nature. Okay, so let me introduce the experiment done by Isaac Newton a long time ago with the prism using the light from the sun. We can use a prism like him to separate the light into different particles. So we can separate the particle through reflections into the wall. Then we can recognize a different color, from violet to the red. Okay, so we have a spectrum color like rainbow. So we recognize and explain those one using refractions and dispersions. But okay, so then we might even though we agree with his the experiment, but we have a different idea. We have a different idea to conceive those one, to understand those color, not separated from the whole light, but only phenomena to be observed by our sense. You're still confused, right? So please look at this one with the color. So the Newton conceived those color, yellow color, for example, K+1, but the Goethe would like to see those phenomena as one of the phenomena induced by, created by the light. But the Newton opposed to that, even though he didn't read the work written by the Goethe, but we can actually we can imagine his idea. Isaac Newton never agree those color. For example, color in yellow cannot be created from anything, because those particles in yellow already exist. Then we extracted out of a certain combine the light, combine the color to be seen by our senses. But the Goethe would like to see those phenomena differently, not separated, but kind of a phenomena created by our sense. You know what I'm saying? So that's the physics. That's the physics with the color and the light. But the secondary, when you extend those discussion into the human impressions, anger, we have anger, we have happiness, we have impassions, passions, and other impressions as well. But anger, do you think can be isolated and separated from whole other impressions of the human body? That's the way Isaac Newton would like to see our psychic phenomena in scientific way. He used analysis. Analysis means we can separate the whole thing into some parts, very small part, to be interpreted separately from the whole body. But the Goethe proposed us, even if we have anger, he proposed us to conceive those one and think of those one as phenomena of a human brain, human impressions, and the being. Okay, that's the two big difference, different way to look at certain object, certain the phenomena, certain the particles, whatever that is. And third example is a fire and wood. Then we have a fire generated the wood. So Isaac Newton believed when he accepted his idea, his law. So fire exists inside wood, then we can extract the fire from wood, because there are a lot of fire in there already, right? But the Goethe believed the fire can be created from the wood. Like a phenomenon of couples, the particle in red, particle in yellow can be created from light by the human body, human being. That's the Goether's way. But Isaac Newton's way, once again, can be defined in scientific way. The particle separated because there is already the particle there in color in red, color in yellow, color in purple, color in violet. Only we can separate and extract it from a whole combination of those couplers, according to Isaac Newton. But Goethe would like to see a differently, as opposed to idea of Isaac Newton. We can create color of red, impression of anger, the substance of fire from light, from human body, human brain, and wood. What do you think? So what side do you like put yourself to explain our nature in scientific way? Last example of is a DNA, about DNA. So we have a DNA in our cell, chromosome types of that, and genes, or whatever that is. So Isaac Newton seems to propose us to be in this way. He proposed us to we can extract the DNA out of our human body, our cell, from our genetic object, to explain the DNA itself, because DNA is already there, to do a lot of metabolic activity. Okay, but the Goethe has different idea. So we are metabolic organisms. So we have a DNA, of course. We accept those physical law, the biological law. So we accept the presence of a DNA, but DNA and its activity and under metabolic system can be created by human body, according to system, based on communication in nature. That's the way the Goethe would like to see heredity and DNA's activity, and so on and so forth. According to Goethe, even if we extracted a single strain of DNA, even though it works, but it is not the character out of some metabolic organism body where specific DNA extracted from. So you understand the big difference between two persons as a scientist. So Goethe, please accept, even if you don't agree, the Goethe is a scientist as well. As a scientist, the Goethe opposed the idea proposed by Isaac Newton with the light. So starting from our discussion with the color in scientific way to understand the nature, phenomena, sometimes phenomenological ways. So please understand and summarize in a conceptual way with a different idea, with a different example. Okay, so I'm going to ask you with this participation one under Street Smart, the topic of May 25th, the Newton, the Goether. Please write down your concept of color. What does it mean by color to you? What does it mean color to you? What do you think of a color? You never thought about the color as a color, probably, but in this class, in this topic, in this participation number one, please give me your concept. The concept means you conceive, you would like to form your thought of a color. What is a color to you? What does it mean by color to you? Okay, please. So thank you. So in participant one, the color to you. What do you mean by color? What does it mean by color to you? So color. So you, someone give me your concept of color, such as particles, such as which could provoke and stimulate our emotion. But based on theory proposed by Isaac Newton, how we explain the particle can provoke, stimulate, and affect our emotion and feeling. So it might be, but it may be not. So that's why we sometimes have to rely on the theory proposed by the Goether, based on his book, Theory of Color. When you read the Goether's the Theory of Color, he separated color, the physical into the physical color, emotional color, the chemical color, the different way, because he believed we cannot separate those one through analytic process. The single color out of light, which could be the whole combination of color based on the Isaac Newton. Instead, we can create the color out of other color, out of substances. So for example, we already discussed, we have fire from wood. So then we may create the fire out of wood. And then Isaac Newton believed we can extract the fire out of wood. If you have anger, if you are right now angry about something, Isaac Newton believed that we can, in scientific way, based on our definition, based on his science, we can extract anger out of our human brain, the body, human organisms, right? But Goethe believed we can create the color, anger, fire from organisms, which combine everything into one being, one existence. We already discussed from the previous class. Okay, which side are you on? As a scientist, not the public and the normal person, but as the scientist. Please look at the color once again to define those in your own way. Then extend those one into different area in many different systems. For example, economic, education, science and arts. So white color, okay, once again, or nature. So that's a two different way, so which the physicist Isaac Newton as opposed to or versus the Goethe would like to see the everything surrounding us. For a simple phenomena, it is very simple to understand to make a concept with light, with color. But extend those one into the complex system, for example, nature, it seems almost impossible to extract a single one out of whole complex activity. We already discussed with the example of baseball, example of evolutions. So do you think it is possible to extract one single reason, one single law and theory out of a complex activity, complex connectivity in nature, in human society, even in a system? Sometimes it is impossible to analyze into single part of things. Of course, we have mathematicians, the way through differentiation and integrations. In Korea, 미적분학, proposed by Leibniz and Isaac Newton as well. And sometimes we do those types of the procedure to understand the phenomena of nature through differentiation, through integration. That's why we started mathematics, calculus types of that. We would like to separate, we would like to analyze, because it's too complex, right? Too complex, the phenomena we've been experiencing right now. That's why we would like to analyze, we would like to divide into infinitesimally small component. Then we can have a clue with the reason why those phenomena, why those occurrence occur based on very simple interactions, very simple law, including Newton's law, the physical law, for example. But not everything work in that way. Instead, we would like to conceive those one as a whole in holistic way, and then we have to create our interpreting figure like Einstein defined in its book of Evolution of Physics. So in your rationale, my rationale, we always compete each other. We always compete each other with analytic way and a conceiving way, proposed by, separated from Isaac Newton and Goethe. Okay, that's why on Thursday class, I'd like to discuss with you science in artistic way. How art contribute to science in scientific way. So Isaac Newton would like to be as close as possible to the complex of nature. Is by establishing theory to like to see something, even if they are very complicated, or we select a different way of a science in holistic way, instead of analyzing and separate into different part, the different implementation part, then we conceive everything into whole, okay, by creating concept and idea. So that's the two different way to do science with object from nature. First one, analyze it. Analyze message from Isaac Newton. And we have another way, conceive it, instead of analyzing. Never analyze it. Analyzing is very dangerous, which is message from Goether. So two different persons, two different scientists teach us to do their ways, to look at our nature in complex way. So we have a system of big data. We have the system of robotic system. We have a very complicated, based on AI, based on big data. We already discussed one. That's why we bring certain concept of even death, right? Death. We come across the equipment as a sign, equipment with a sign to understand our phenomena out of a complex of big data. Sometimes we use money as the death of whole economic activity. Why? That much complex is very difficult. Even if we combine every existing the body, but sometimes completely fail to interpret, to bring structure of present, to understand collapse of economic. For example, in 2008, when he asked those the phenomena of collapse, phenomena of coronavirus, the pandemic situation to Isaac Newton, he probably asked us to analyze it, right? To analyze it. But when he, with those the same, the problem asked to the von Goethe, he may answer to that question to us, please conceive it. Create your idea, create your concept based on nature, based on complexity we would like to see. So that's the big difference. That's the two different scientific theory, I believe. Theory means in Greek, in Latin, to see what can be seen, what can be seen. So through theory, even if we don't have any reality to be observed, to be sensible, but we can see through theory. That's why there are a lot of scientific theory, even if they haven't proved yet. Okay, so here is participation 2. Participation 2. What is concept of anger? So based on, we discussed this one. Between two different ways to accept this anger out of our emotion, okay, in scientific way, between Newton and Goethe. Okay, please. Okay, thank you for your participation, active contribution to this split that smart. So if you have difficulties, and then after this class even, then you can participate for your attendance. 출석, okay? So I check those one. Even if you are not able to give this your opinion, answer to that question with this the participation. After class, please leave your message, leave your answer, opinion. Okay, light again. Okay, how you understand the theory of light? Theory of light. Do you believe light is particle, or you believe light is the wave? Okay, we have the theory of a particle, so that we understand and explain a lot of phenomena of light using the theory of a particle, like Newton, like Einstein. But we have other things we cannot explain by theory of a particle. For example, diffractions with the barrier. And then we have to use the different theory, such as the theory of a wave. But wave theory either cannot fully explain the phenomena of the light, for example, refractions. So combining these two, it can explain everything, almost everything about the motion of a particle, motion of a wave with the light. The long time ago, even prior to Isaac Newton's, there is a scientist, the priest as well, the named Christian Huygens in Netherlands. He proposed certain substances, named ether. When you use this ether, we can explain everything about light. So the priest imagines light from sun and to arrive at the earth. So we can use a particle theory to travel through the vacuum systems, through universe between sun and earth. It's possible, but there are limitations as well sometimes. But if you use wave, so we cannot explain the travel of the light from sun to the earth. So he proposed, Huygens means the proposed ether as a medium to transport light through its medium based on wave theory. But this, the presence of ether can explain all the particle theory as well. But we cannot prove the presence of this ether. That's why this is only theory. But recently I was told that from the meeting between the Nobel Prize physicists in another area, so they seems believe the presence of ether, even if it cannot be proved yet. Okay, that's the theory, once again. That's the theory, to see what is unseen, to be seen based on those one. Okay, once again, so we've been discussing this one in this class. Analysis and conceive. To get at certain component to be analyzed as opposed to be conceived, to get at concept as knowledge. So we have two different steps. The first one, analysis followed by synthesis. If you separate into many different small components to be analyzed with the model as simple as possible. It is possible, but we have to combine everything into one, the same as before our analysis. That's what we call synthesis. But differently, we can conceive after based on our sense perceiving. Okay, so that's the Goether's way. Analysis by Isaac Newton. So a long time ago, so with a different example, gravity. There's one scientist, Gregor Johann Mendel. With his experimental material of P, he established theory of heredity without using DNA as subsequent theory of those biological, the fancy model. He established all the heredity, but he didn't analyze everything, right? So he conceived as as a whole one, based on only phenomena, he created the concept based on those observations. He established a very good theory about reality. Long after invention or the finding of a structure of a DNA, we can prove Mendel's right. That's the Mendelism. It's very similar to Goether's. Because he created the concept. By creating the concept, you can define science according to Einstein, right? Please look at this the sentence again. The science can be defined, and also we elaborate science in this way. Please look at the sentence, the following definition. Physical theories try to form a picture of reality, establish its connection with the wide world of sense expression, and also he mentioned Einstein means justification for our mental structure, okay, with the science. Okay, coming back to reality. So we have two different approach right now. The first one, Mendelism, similar to Goether. As opposed to DNA, we can separate every genetic activity into molecular levels of corpus under method and way of Isaac Newton's, right? Mendelism from Mendel and Goether, and versus the way with the molecular levels of corpus, which is DNA, spotted by Isaac Newton. And then we think of activity of our mRNA vaccines. For example, to me, conceptual as opposed to physical approach. The conceptual approach is a good example of Mendelism's and Goether's. But the physical approach, the based on analysis, is very similar to way proposed by Isaac Newton. DNA and RNA, the single molecular activity. Of course, you may say, so even if we use DNA and RNA-based vaccines, so we can combine everything into whole immunization phenomena. Yes, you are right. But once again, then we can extract one single corpus based on Isaac Newton's way to understand the science, even with the nature, which is complex. Then we can combine the later. Because we can extract those one out of whole total. Then we can come back to whole object by combining everything into one. That's the Isaac Newton's way. But the Goether and the Mendelism told us it is, or it may be not possible. If we extract and analyze into small pieces of reality, then we cannot come back to where we started as whole microorganisms, living organisms, for example. Then we may be successful to extract and separate molecular levels of a vaccine out of with the name of mRNA, for example, Pfizer. Okay, so I respect those endeavor and effort. I'm not arguing, I'm not opposing I'm not criticizing, but I'd like to discuss with you. So we extract DNA, the genetic types of couples, which could work for our immunizations. Then we can combine everything into whole body metabolisms. Okay, so here is participation 3. What is your concept regarding mRNA vaccine, such as Pfizer? Okay, please give me your concept. So once again, it is not the criticizing and pro and against, but I ask you to understand what does it mean to you by those molecular levels of a vaccine in terms of metabolic activity with the whole body of our immunizations. Okay. So I believe this is very tough, the questions. What do you mean by mRNA vaccines? So you could use Isaac Newton's approach to explain, or as one calculus extracted from human metabolic system, or you may use the concept of a created one out of metabolic systems. Okay, it seems sometimes similar, almost confused, but absolutely different one to understand this mRNA vaccines with regard to side effect, with regard to immunizations overhaul the human body against the COVID-19. Okay, that's why we started this one. Okay, so then the combine everything today. So what would be a role of art to science? Is Goethe? You still believe the Goethe is not scientist, or you finally believe Goethe is a real scientist against Isaac Newton? So up to you, right? Up to you. Why we discuss this way to understand our whole phenomena, specifically the scientific phenomena in scientific way. There is other types of scientists in the world, in the history, like Goethe, like Mendel. So then we used their idea to look at the world in different way, based on their different definition of the science. That's why Einstein advised as well, in addition to Goethe. Even he, Einstein, the successor of Isaac Newton, with a deterministic mechanical view, even with a single particle, but when it comes to nature types of phenomena, he proposed us to think of human mind, sensing impressions, the creation of a concept and idea to get a science in totally different way. That's why please look at your digital generations to overcome the problem we face right now. The older generation right now, like me, cannot overcome in some way. We only hope to help you to overcome and to solve the problem you're facing it, to help you to overcome some big war based on block and chain, right? That's why we discussed this one. The Goethe, especially Goethe's way to look at nature with the complexity, with his own idea, based on definitions similar to Einstein. Okay, thank you very much your attentions. the good day, and we see again on Thursday with the new topic of art. What's the role of art to science? Okay, thank you very much. Good day. 네, 감사합니다.